Hey there, Matt Petrowski here, and in this video we are taking a look at working with SVG icons within the Theme Studio. Now you can clearly see that I am in the Icons section of the Theme Studio, and by default it will actually open up to the Icon Builder. This is where it allows you to combine two different icons, and I'll just drag this cog over here. But you can see that it'll allow you to combine the two icons and then basically position them as I move this 10 pixels at a time to wherever I want it. I also have control over transparency and brightness. If I want to change this to more translucent, or if I want to make it darker, then I can do that very quickly right here. It also supplies the base 64 code, and that I'll reserve for another video where we're actually working with the tweak section of the Theme Studio. But what we're looking at is working with SVGs. The Theme Studio version 3 supports SVG icons. You can get many of them in different icon collections, plus out on the web. Now you can see right here, I've created a resource. This is my own resource for the Theme Studio project. Now you will have a collection of resources, which are theme packs that you get from the Theme Studio shop or from other third parties, but the Theme Studio is my own collection. Now what I have here is a visual representation of the icon. It's just a plain simple black icon, but I also have the SVG icon. Now in the renderer, we can see that in this container, it is looking for an SVG. If I drag this PNG file over here, it'll basically complain and tell me it's not an SVG file. However, if I drag the SVG file, what will happen is the Theme Studio will render this with whatever settings that I want. Now an SVG file is a really cool file. It's basically just an XML file that defines an actual image, and it's taking the web by storm. It's been around for quite a while, and most of your icon providers do provide SVG files as well as Photoshop and Illustrator, but we're able to scale this up or down to whatever size we want. The reason that this is useful within the Theme Studio and when designing your FileMaker layouts is that we can do things at 3x or 2x. We never want to use an icon, or at least from this point forward, at the size that we're actually wanting it at. So let's take into account that we're putting a button on our layout, a check mark. We want it to be green, and that's going to be 32 by 32. So here you can see I'm going to choose 32 by 32, but this is not the size that I want this icon at. I want to go 2x or 3x of this. So at 2x, I would be at 64. If I wanted to go 3x, then I'm definitely going to go up higher than that, 96. So this is probably now a 3x icon, not green yet, but you can see that as long as an SVG file is a single color, because obviously it would be very difficult to change a multicolor icon, but as long as it's a single color, I can actually change the values here to whatever I want. So FF0000, let's try that. Actually, I think green is going to be FFFF. That's yellow. I'll get it here. Let's see, RGB, it's 0000FF. There we go. This is, if I could get this right, this is in hex, RGB, Matt, so the green is in the middle. This is a hex value of which you can get, obviously, a hex value from anything on the web, and there's tools that you can use in order to find out whatever the color is that you need. But now that I have this at 3 times the size and the color I want, I can also give it the name that I want. I could call this check yes. And you'll see that if I just put the name and click out, FileMaker will actually add the .png for me. But this file right now is now a 3x PNG, which is what FileMaker supports. FileMaker does not currently support internal embedded SVG, although I have a strong feeling that it will in the future, because that's the trend that everything is heading towards, is using SVG files, which are typically pretty small. Especially if you have a very large graphic, the SVG can actually be, in some cases, smaller than the actual icon itself once they get really big. But when they're really small, they're pretty tiny. You can see that this is 2.11 kilobytes. Now down here at the bottom, the Theme Studio provides an optimize feature, which is going to do what is called quantization internally to this icon, probably knocking it down in half or more. So when I click the optimize, you can see that we went from 2.11 kilobytes to 1.14 without losing any quality. In fact, it's almost imperceptible the amount of quality loss. But what I can do with this icon now is I can put this into my FileMaker solution. So I'm going to go up to the File menu, create a new database, and I'll just call it blank for right now. I now have my new database. I will switch over to my theme studio. I'll simply select here, copy this, and then go over and paste. It's really that simple. Now there's one thing that you need to be aware of when you're working with graphics. In fact, when we go to the Appearance tab, we can see very clearly that FileMaker is telling us that this object is a graphic, and I'm using FileMaker 13. If we select on the Data tab on the inspector, then the Data tab down towards the bottom is going to have this option called Maintain Original Proportions. So let's take a look at what happens if we don't check that. We can scale this up to be squashed or to be thin, whatever it is. If we check that Maintain Original, then no matter how we scale it, whatever side actually controls the smallest width or height, that's what's going to make that icon be exactly what we want. Now, if I want to use this within a button embedded, what I'm going to do is I'm simply going to right-click the icon, choose Export Field Contents, and I can also down here in the bottom, when I'm not selected in the container, I can actually click this little icon right here and it will export the icon based on whatever name I had given it directly to the desktop. If I want to control where it goes, I'm going to right-click and choose Export Field Contents. And you can see right here, it's called check-yes, but it's also added this -opt in order to mean optimized. I can take that off if I want and click Save. But now I can go over to my other database. Let's say, for example, I wanted to embed this graphic directly onto a button. Selecting the button, I can just choose a step of Set Variable, say OK, go to the Appearance Inspector, unselect the button, and now choose a fill of an image. That image can be my check yes PNG. You can see that by default, FileMaker is going to tile this object right here, and all I have to do is say scale to fit. And that's going to be the exact same thing as maintain proportions, but now this is within my actual object. You can easily do a lot of different things. If you want to be able to make this change on hover, we can do the exact same steps that we just did with the original, but simply changing the color slightly. And there's all kinds of other things that you can do when working with the SVGs. But fundamentally, that is how you can work with SVG icons within the Theme Studio. In another video, I'll show you how you can actually edit and modify and create your own custom SVG by simply exporting it using this icon right here.